Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's exclusive interview with the renowned businessman and classic car enthusiast, Mr. Lindsay Fox. Today we have the privilege of delving into the fascinating world of the Fox Classic Car Collection, gaining insights into Mr. Fox's passion for vintage automobiles. Without further ado, let's begin our in-depth conversation and discover the story behind this remarkable collection and the man behind it all. Lindsay, thank you so much for being here today. Would you mind please introducing yourself?
Yes, I'm Lindsay Fox. I was born on the 19th of April 1937 and I'm currently 86 years of age.
Lindsay, to start off, can you please tell us a bit about how the idea of creating a museum to display your collection of cars came about?
Well, I like classic cars, and from when I was probably 17 or 18 I started buying cars, and I think the first fancy car I had was an Austin Atlantic, an A90, and then the rest sort of come along as the new models were made, and I like the look of the Jags, and bought the Jags, and something else come out new and I'd start buying them.
What sparked your passion for classic cars, and was there a specific one that started the collection?
No, probably the adrenaline of getting in it and driving it. You know, some of these I took up the old Templestowe hill climb. Now, I don't know if it's still there, but in the early days, the sports car clubs used to go to Templestowe and drive their car up a winding hill.
When going through the process of selecting the certain cars that are going to be added to the museum, is there a certain criteria that you go about following?
Yeah, classic cars that I'd enjoy driving myself. All of these cars are all drivable and they're collectible. Some people collect stamps, some blokes collect girls. I prefer to stay with the cars that are classic, and some of the cars here might be 30, 40, 50 years old, and they look exactly the same as when they were delivered from the showroom floor.
And can you talk a bit about your most memorable experiences with the cars, and are there any that stand out in particular?
No, they're all the same. They're like members of the family. They're in a family, all the kids are different. All of these cars are different. You look around here quickly and look at the differential, although they're fundamentally the same drive lines, they're all different cars.
So the museum features a lot of different cars and different styles. Is there a specific era that was your favourite?
No, not really. I think probably the early ones that we bought were the XK 120 Jaguars, all the way up to the 150S, and all of that particular range of cars. We got each and every one of them that was out. There's a few rollers. There's no end to collecting. It's a matter of where you've got the space to store them.
And on a daily basis, is there one in particular that is your favourite to drive?
My 1957 F500 Ford truck, because without that we'd never have what we've got. That was the start of the business of Lindsay Fox.
So that truck, would it be the most sentimental out of all of the vehicles that you own?
No, I wouldn't say sentimental, that's probably not a good word for it. But a favourite, yes, but sentimental value on life is a hell of a lot more important than sentimental value on an automobile. It's a fancy, like I love chocolates. So if I want some good chocolates when I'm in America, I go to See's Candy. Here I'd probably go to Hague's. Motor cars have probably got the same sort of attraction. You like them for what they are.
Is there one specific car in the museum that does have really strong sentimental value to you?
No, I don't have sentimental values about cars. You know, at my time of life, in another 2 or 3 years, I'll be gone. My children will then have the privilege of continuing on the tradition of buying and storing and showing cars on behalf of the Fox family.
So if there was one car out of the whole collection that you could keep, which one would it be?
Well, the 959, which is the one back in the far corner there, I picked that up brand new from Stuttgart and drove it for a couple of weeks. That's a very special car. It's I was probably out on the freeways doing about 180 kilometres an hour. But it was a special car. And there's not too many cars you'd want to be in at 180 k's, but that was as safe as you could possibly be.
Have there been any cars that you've regretted not buying when you've had the opportunity to do so?
No, I'm impulsive. I either buy it or I let it go. And I don't sort of come back and worry about the ones I missed. I'm more concerned about the ones that I'm going to buy.
And what's the next one for the museum?
Well, the next one here will be the Project One, which is a Mercedes-Benz car. It's one of those strange things that has taken just on 4 years to homologate. I believe they're going to deliver it in July.
Is there a specific reason that you've chosen that car? What sparks your interest in it?
No, I think they only made a couple of hundred for the world. And it's a supercar. If I got in it to drive, and I'd have to crawl in and crawl out.
A bit tight to squeeze in?
I've already done that in Germany.
And have you driven most of the cars in the museum?
Yes, just about them all.
And with the Enzo Ferrari, that has the yellow roof.
Yes, that's the colours of the Lindsay Fox fleet. Red body and a yellow roof.
Can you tell us a bit about how you managed to get the yellow roof?
I told them that's what I wanted. That's what they gave me.
And what about the sapphire blue Porsche collection? Can you tell us a bit about how you managed to acquire those?
Well, they all belong to the Porsche family. And I bought them off one of the family. We had a simple negotiation. We settled on a price and I took the lot. In fact, I think I'm going to his wedding in Germany in July, maybe August. I haven't got the date up here, but I know I've been invited to go, so I'll certainly go. His father was the chief executive of Porsche. He's dead now.
Did you have a good relationship with him?
No, he came out to Australia. He's been here and had a look at what we've got. And he did up the engine on this blue one over here, wasn't it, Eric? Oh, okay, the other one. And virtually completely rebuilt it for it.
So when you were acquiring this collection, did you have a specific interest for it, or was it the colouring?
No, it was a game of Monopoly. The more I could get, the better I liked it.
With the SLRs, you have quite a few of them. Can you tell us about how they came about and why they appeal to you?
Well, a lot of the Mercedes that we bought were towards they were all limited numbers. And they had, I don't know, 4 or 5, a lot of the models. And being somebody that likes a deal, I bought the lot. And they sit here today.
Can you tell us, have you driven any of the SLRs? Do you have any specific memories driving them?
No. They're all jungled up. When you get to my time of life, they're all pretty much the same. But there is, in youth, there's a lot of love and affection for a car. It's probably like somebody riding a horse. And you get in and you take it for a spin. You take it either around a track or any of the facilities that we've got and get a lot of fun out of it.
Is that why you created the museum, to pass on the cars to the public eye?
No, I wanted to do, so this building was very special. And we got this building through Paul Keating when he was Prime Minister of Australia. This will keep on going. We'll probably try and do some extensions to it in the future years, and that'll virtually fall back to my sons and how they want to run the business of GiveAid. It was put together primarily on the basis that we create some money and give that money to various charities. We've still given a bit of money to the charities, but the reality is it's a nest egg, and who knows what happens. The kids might say enough's enough, sell it or give the money to charity.
It's regarded as one of the finest car collections in Australia. How does it feel to have your hard work and passion recognised in this way?
Passion is a word that's probably associated with romance. I haven't romanced with any of my cars. However, the aspect of being able to get up on a Sunday morning and get in a very nice car, and go and drive it, that in itself is special. Or alternatively, take out to Avalon, where we've got a facility there, or 2 or 3 other locations with tracks that we take on for a drive. That's good. But once again, there's a certain timeline where you're still active enough to be able to handle a high-powered car. It's probably like somebody that's got to break in a horse. And unless they know what they're doing, they get thrown off it. With a car, it's very easy to spin it or run into something or write it off. So you've got to be aware of all of these scenarios that could prevail. To date, we've never had an issue. I don't think I'd see an issue happen. I wouldn't put a car of ours in a position where it was going to have a potential crash.
When you see people coming in and receiving so much joy from the cars, how does that make you feel?
Yeah, well, when you see that and people appreciate what they're getting and the money that they pay, we don't use any of it. It's given straight out to various organisations. That was the purpose of creating the museum. Create a little network of charities that we prepared to support, and the income that came here by people coming in to look at the cars would be spent on these charities. But it's not one where you look at the profitability of what you're doing. It doesn't come into it.
It's not about the money.
No. It's never about money. Money is a byproduct of job satisfaction. If you enjoy what you're doing, you'll do it again. Same thing here. Opportunity comes up. Somebody told me, Eric told me there before, that this fella's got a car. He wants to know if we're interested. The answer is yes. But it'd be an interesting battle to see the negotiation of the buyer and the seller. You need to be aware when that happens.
You would have had a lot of those.
I've had them all my life.
When visitors are coming in, is there anything specific that you hope that they take away from their experience?
No, not really. I've enjoyed whatever little time I've spent in all of these cars. But once again, it's an exceptional situation where you've got the privilege of taking a car and drive it, putting it back and making sure it's been well maintained. And that's Eric's job.
Are there any upcoming plans and projects that you're excited about?
No, well, look, there are lots of things we're looking at the moment. Enlarging the size here and doing something that will probably create a bit more money that can go back out to the community. It's not money that we want to accumulate it. This is to go out to the community.
What advice would you give to someone that's trying to curate their own collection of classic cars?
Normally there's a reason to sell. They might need it for something else, and a car is a car, although it might be special and worth a lot of money. But the bottom line, it comes back to really the joy to have the privilege to get in one of these cars and actually take it for a drive.
And is there any one specific car that started it all?
Probably the Austin A90. That was a great car. I think we've got 2 of them here in the museum at the moment. But I was about 18 when I got it. And, I thought I was a real fancy dancer.
So now there's some questions from the general public. Is there any one business decision that you've made that has had the biggest impact on where you're at?
There's no specific reason. I've always wanted to do better the next day, the next week, the next month, the next year. Job satisfaction is one of the things that drives you, not money. When I look at all of these things here, that's because of job satisfaction. no other reason. And right through your life, if you find that you're enjoying what you're doing, money has no impact.
Is there one best car that you've ever driven?
No, I can't honestly say that there's one better than the other. They're all classic in their own way. It's like probably in your courting days and you're kissing girls, some are better kisses than others. So they're the ones that win the race.
What motivates you?
What motivates me? My family. I was lucky enough to come into this world in Sydney as a 4-year-old. My parents lived in a boarding house and they came to Melbourne in 1941, and we lived in a boarding house in Johnson Street, Collingwood, with a shared bathroom, a shared kitchen, and I got all the values of being in a situation of not having a house. But a few years later, my family rented the house at 22 Stewart Street, Windsor, where they paid £1 a week rent. And it was a nice house, but it was a family house. And as years went by, I came back and bought the house. We were paying rent. I was there till I got married at 22 years of age. So I was there for 18 years. But the foundations of that house I've carried right through to the various houses, to the various members of my family. A lot of the kids, I can think of 3 that before they were married, they shacked up there. And when they got married, they left there and they're all still together. That in itself gives me a great deal of satisfaction. And it's a matter of family values and carrying those family views all the way through your life. I've got one motto: if better is possible, good is not enough. Or you can't do wrong doing right. They're 2 very basic principles that you should build your life around, and I've tried to do that.
What are your top learnings that you'd like to pass on to the next generation?
Be a giver, not a taker.
If you had one piece of advice to give to young people, what would it be?
Follow the words of Mark Twain. The harder you work, the luckier you become. And that is a true fact. So the pleasure comes out of creating what you're trying to do, but the harder you work is quite clearly the leader. It's not the money, it's the job satisfaction of achieving something that you set out to do.
When you first decided to purchase your own truck and knew that was what you wanted to do, was there always an interest in cars and trucks, or where did that stem from?
I was lucky I was an academic failure. I went to Prahran State School, which was 400 yards away from where we lived in Stewart Street, Windsor. I was totally an academic failure. I went on to Toorak Central School, then on to Melbourne High School. I got to Melbourne High, and in those days I wanted to be a lawyer. But my marks for Latin were, I think, 6% first term, 10% second term, and 15% third term. So to be a lawyer in those days, Latin was the subject that you had to pass. So I left school as a 16, 17-year-old boy and convinced a second-hand truck dealer, E.V. Timms in Richmond, to sell me a truck. And I bought that truck on 4 quarterly payments. I put £300 I put about 100 in. I had to pay 200 off over a 12-month period. Now that's where it started, and the story of from little oak trees, or from little acorns, oak trees grow. And that's what's happened with me. All of these experiences that I gained as a young fella growing up have all come through. And I've had a successful run right throughout my life. I could start my story with the words, once upon a time, because all the things that have happened to me throughout my lifetime, the people that I've met, they're all fairy tale materials.
When you first decided to purchase your own truck and knew that was what you wanted to do, was there always an interest in cars and trucks, or where did that stem from?
No, I think that came a little later. I think the first thing was to have a nice home, take my girlfriend after we got married into our first house. And the first house that we moved into when we were married was 823 High Street, Armidale. Kept that, we would move from 823 High Street, Armidale to 82 Manning Road, which the president of the Moorabbin Football Club built for me to come and play for Moorabbin after I finished at St Kilda. That was 1962. From there we moved to, where'd we go? Back to Armidale in Redcourt Avenue. From Redcourt Avenue we went to one other place, I'll think of it, and then in the house that we're in, and we've been in that house in Irving Road now for 50 odd years. But in each case, it was like having an ordinary old-fashioned pair of running shoes, which were SS Dunlops, I think they were, and to the fancy ones you've got on today. Progressive steps.
I'm correct in saying that you can see that throughout the museum as well?
No, well, when you consider the house we lived in was 15-foot frontage, a dunny out the back, a gully trap, a little kitchen, but it was a happy home. It was a family environment, and we learned the value of integrity and the value of hard work. And those things have gone through to now the third generation. They're doing things that I would have done at the same time of their lives. Life is short, and you got to live it. You never should postpone enjoyment. You've got to understand we're here today and we're gone tomorrow. So if we're here today and we're gone tomorrow, push tomorrow out as far as you can, as long as you're healthy.
So with the future, with all of these cars, is there a specific life that you wish for them to endure?
No. I am a very proactive person. I don't wish for too much. If my desire is to do something, I'll do it. In a couple of weeks' time, I'm going to go to Europe. I used to go twice a year, probably 4 times a year around the world. I was on the board of Continental Airlines, so airline ticket cost me nothing. I could take anywhere at any time with my family in first class. So from when I was about 28, the world was my oyster. And I enjoyed the experience of going to all these places. So when we come to the end of June, I'm going to go to Europe, and I'm going initially to Paris, then across to Munich, Munich to Zurich, Zurich to Milan, Milan to Florence, then I'm going to Venice to get in my boat and spend 2 months sitting on my backside on the boat.
You travel overseas a lot. Is there a specific memory that you can remember driving overseas?
Yeah, well, I've always got a great deal of satisfaction, and the experiences I've gained. When I think of Mercedes-Benz and Jürgen Schrimp, who was the chairman, I knew everybody on the board. These days, they're a whole different group of people, and they're not putting their customers first. They're looking at money, and money, rather than people, is a waste of time. I endorse all of my kids to go and have a look and see what they haven't seen, because that's what life's about, so that you come back with a world of knowledge through those 2 eyes. You can't get that in a book, but you can through practical experience, touching. There's not one part of the world that I wouldn't be able to pick up the phone and ring a person in that country. But once again, this stupid thing they call networking is all bullshit. Friendship is a whole different thing. You'll do anything for a good friend. Networking, somebody gives you the car and they think they can ask you to do something for them. That's not necessary. But if you're built up friends starting from school, starting from work, all of those things, and over my life, which is now 86 years gone by, and I'm going into my 87th year now, I've been on every land continent in the world, and I'm not stopping. I intend to live till I die. And if there's a good example, your father could tell you, I took my my 6 grandsons, my 3 sons, and went down to the Antarctic. And I jumped into the water at 4 degrees below zero. They said, that'll kill you, Pop. I said, if I die, I die. I plunged myself into the water. They all systematically followed me. That's what life is.
What do you think about electric cars versus petrol cars?
Look, I think electric cars are very good, but I'm not sure about the long term. I know that there've got to be additional methods of fueling cars. The cars that are electric virtually are a battery. It's not, there's no engine. It's a battery. And I'm too old to start looking for new tricks in driving a motor car. I like to put my foot on the accelerator, rev it up a couple of bits and then just drive off in it. But it's the way it's going, because fossil fuel, will diminish. Batteries won't diminish. So you'll see a transformation that's going fairly fast now, but that's in the car side. In the truck side, they haven't got an engine big enough to do the loads today of the big trucks. We've got 700 and 800 horsepower trucks that pull 100 tonne. There's no electric motor that can do that.
With all of the cars, you keep them in such immaculate condition, which wins you many awards. How does that make you feel?
Well, people often ask me how we manage to keep our trucks so clean. There's always been a policy you can't take a truck out that's dirty. Now, your father gets on the phone and says, Fox 767 is filthy dirty. Ray, go and get it washed, pull it off the road. Now that runs all the way through the company. Your father probably started that, but any dirty truck and any of the executives see them on the road, back to the yard and wash it.
And the same with your personal cars?
Yeah, well, what do you think we change our underpants for?
Is there anything else that you'd like to mention?
You get out of life what you're prepared to put in it. And you can't do wrong doing right. They're the basic principles I work to. And if you do those things, they really take the place of religion. You don't have conflict. If everyone was prepared to accept that as the motto or their desire in life, we'd be a better world, instead of having the conflict that we do over religion or little variations whatsoever. You can't do wrong doing right.
Is there one piece of advice that's been ingrained into you that you'd like to share?
No, what's ingrained to me was the family, how as a 4-year-old we left Sydney, but Mum and Dad were always caring and sharing, and they weren't well off. they weren't well off at all. But they always cared that if somebody arrived at our house around lunchtime on a weekend, they'd be invited to stay for lunch. I can tell you with total sincerity, I can remember getting out of bed when I was about 9 to go to school, and in front of the fireplace in our lounge room, which was about 4 metres by 3 metres, there was a fire, and in front of the fireplace was a lounge chair, and there were two total strangers sitting in that double lounge chair in front of the fire. My father took them off the street because they were cold and had nowhere to go. Didn't know them, but here was I come out dressed, ready to go to school, and the strangers were sitting there in front of the fireplace. Now that was the spirit of a community that was growing all the time. And I think I got lots of the caring and sharing from examples that I saw within my own family. And today, that thing is still carried on with the caring and sharing element with every member of the clan. And they haven't been told to do it, but they do. And it's an automatic thing that runs in our family. We're very fortunate, and I'm very fortunate to have the experiences of having bread and dripping. None of my kids have had bread and dripping.
When you were younger, was your dream always to run your own business?
No. When you think of Lindsay Fox today, operating in 12 countries with over 36,000 people on the payroll, and they're all fed, so we're feeding in our organisation 72,000 people. No, never in my wildest dreams. But there's a lot of job satisfaction seeing all of these things happen. To see kids that come from these various families come and work within the company. We have an amazing amount of people that have been 30, 40, 50 years with the company. And they love the company as though it was their own. And they treat it accordingly.
Your father was a truck driver, is that correct?
My father was a truck driver, a bit of a raconteur. But when I was growing up, he was carting for Reckitt and Coleman with a charcoal burner on the back of the truck. They never used fuel. They burned charcoal in a Bunsen burner. And that was probably 1946. And I can remember that quite clear. And the place that he was doing all of this work was in South Melbourne. Dettol blue and Dettol and bagged blue were the two products of Reckitt and Coleman in those days.
So you really followed your father when buying your first truck?
Yeah, well, things were different in those days, and I was probably extremely ambitious and wanted to prove I could do something better than they could. And I finished up getting Coles to sell me all of their trucks, Woolworths to sell me all of their trucks, Coca-Cola to sell me all of their trucks. And it just kept on going. And in those early days, we were getting 100% growth every year. Even today, we're still getting 20% growth a year. But at a larger number. And that's because we look after our customer, we deliver on our commitments, and we fulfill.
You can't go on the road and not see one.
I'd be disappointed if you didn't see 10. The caption on the back, you're passing another fox. The moral of that was when your father was born, your grandmother passed another fox. That was your father.
That's where it came from?
When Peter was born, I put that on the back of the truck. you're passing another fox, and related that to Paula.
And now you've got hundreds and thousands of foxes going around.
Well, when we were young, Stewart Street, Windsor, had about 60 or 70 kids in the street. And we played cricket and football in the street. And at the end of the street was a horse trough where the horses got their water for the horses' carts delivering the bread and the milk. So I've watched the transformation of transportation from an animal-pulled vehicle to a high horsepower vehicle today.
You've seen a lot in your lifetime.
Well, my parents only got to 60 and 61. I've lived 50% longer than they had. I'll keep on going until I drop.
And do you still love to drive?
I do. I get in a car and I can drive and drive and drive. I'd often jump in the car and drive to Sydney and come back. A lot of fun, a lot of pleasure. And I'd see what was happening on the highway, which became part of an education. I'd see whose trucks were on the road, what they were doing. The best example I can give you, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 people. Most of my customers start with the letter C. Make a C with your hand. Come on. C, right? Coles, Caltex, Coca-Cola, Colt, United, and we cut most of the cash in Australia. Hold it up. Now touch your chin. Come on. Have a look at one another now. Have a look. She touched her chin. She touched her chin because she's been done them before. The only people that normally touch their chin are blind or... What's the other one? Someone? I can't remember. Lawyers. Lawyers have to listen to what you've said. You heard what I said, touch your chin, but your eyes told you what to do because you saw me do that. You heard what I said. So you followed what you heard, not what you saw. She touched her chin because I've trapped her before. She's a good learner. Which is bad. But that's part of life's education. In fact, you can use that to prove that what I said is right with anybody in your family. And they'll do exactly and not that.
Eric, thank you so much for being here. You do so much amazing work for the museum. Would you mind please introducing yourself?
So my name is Eric Holton. I'm the service manager for the Fox private car collection. So anything that Lindsay owns, the museum cars, we do the maintenance, restoration and display the cars when we need to.
So what sparked your passion for restoring cars?
I started off as an apprentice mechanic with Nissan, Hyundai, RACV. So we fixed everything that we towed in and had quite a diverse range of cars because we're ex-BMC back in the day. So we worked on a lot of British cars. And it sort of started for me just really doing the maintenance and breakdown and repair on the cars. But my dad was always restoring cars in the background. So at a younger age, 15 years old, we had a mini moke that we pulled out of a paddock and welded some new floors into. Well, Dad did and I watched, but sort of learnt the basis of some restoration work as a younger guy and sort of grew the passion over the years to fix up cars and really enjoyed pulling a car out of a paddock and fixing it and getting it running and then putting it back on the road. So it sort of started back then in those days, and I decided to move to Melbourne from South Gippsland and got into the prestige car world, worked at BMW. Did that for about 5 years, progressed from being a mechanic to a service advisor. From there, the main dealer principal moved to Mercedes-Benz and he asked me to come across to Mercedes-Benz and do my job over there. So I moved to Mercedes and I was a service advisor at Mercedes-Benz and then turned into the front of house manager, and Lindsay was my customer at Mercedes-Benz. So over a 3-year period, I got to know Lindsay quite well with his cars coming in and out. He'd bring them in personally, sometimes pick up cars, or if he had a battery issue or anything like that, he'd come in and I'd look after him, and we just got chatting about cars. One afternoon, I drove him into the city after a battery issue, and we were just chatting about cars, and I was restoring a car at home. So he said to me, "Oh, so you know about restoration and maintenance of the cars?" And we were talking further, and then he offered me a job to come across and look after his collection. That was about 8.5 years ago, and so now we're building all sorts of really beautiful cars that you don't usually get an opportunity to work on. So it's a satisfying job.
What would you say that your daily tasks look like at Essendon?
We basically have cars that we work on every day. So we have a schedule for maintenance. So if cars haven't been ran for a while, we obviously need to start vehicles. We need to keep them clean, detailed, polished. There's daily cars that need servicing that might be driven on a daily basis, Rolls Royces, Mercedes-Benz, other vehicles. So we'd take them to dealerships as required just to keep the service history going on the newer cars. But the classic vehicles, we work on anything from Mercedes-Benz to Porsche to Bentley, Jaguar, Rolls-Royce, all those sorts of cars we fix in the workshop. So the day can be anything from just polishing a car, getting it ready for a show, or a full tear-down restoration with 3 other staff members in Essendon Fields.
Do you find it hard to acquire the parts that you put into classic cars?
Yeah, if the part is missing from the car, we try and either make it or source a new piece from an original part. But if the car is complete, everything that we take off the car, we recondition and put back on the car so it remains original.
How do you go about preserving the cars, making sure that they're in good condition for the years to come?
It's really the biggest struggle. Excuse me. The biggest struggle is probably the fuel in the cars. It starts to go off over a period of time when the car's sitting around, and braking systems and getting cars up to temperature so that everything can remain operational. We come in and start the cars periodically inside the museum every few months to keep them operational, and if they don't run very well or have some problems, we'll take them out, bring them to the workshop and do the required maintenance to keep them running properly. It's difficult to drive cars inside the museum because they are obviously on display, but we do drive things out at Essendon Fields whenever we're doing maintenance and repairs, just to ensure that it's in good condition.
So can you describe the process of selecting new cars for the collection?
The cars really are a personal collection, so it's the things that Lindsay likes. So I tend not to really look for new cars. It's really what Lindsay wants to buy himself. So he'll tell me that he's bought cars, or we might be having a show coming up. One of his friends has asked for a vehicle, so we get the car ready and present it with what Lindsay wants to do. Obviously we do get sent emails with cars for sale, and if it's something of interest we pursue it. If it's not, we might already have one, or we try and find things that are unique and unusual. I am a bit of a fan of English sports cars and Italian cars. So I really like the 288 GTO Ferrari. It drives really well and has usable power, unlike the F40, which is probably not as streetable. But there's a lot of different unique cars that we have that are all a pleasure to drive, and it's stuff that you don't really get to play with any other time, so it's definitely an enjoyable thing.
Can you describe the process for when the cars require maintenance?
In the workshop at Essendon Fields, if we need to restore a car, we basically strip the car down to a bare shell, take all the wiring out of it, we take all the nuts and bolts, the chrome, all the interior out of the car. Then we send it to a panel shop where they do the full body repairs. So it might have rust in it, might have new panels that need to be made to make it brand new again. And then we send the chrome out to a place to get it all re-chromed. The trim, obviously that gets done with a trimmer, but at Essendon Fields our main job is to strip a car to nothing, send all the bits and pieces out, and then when it comes back we reassemble it and try and do it back to the original standards. So if it's the wrong colour, we make it the right colour as per the factory build sheet, and then we try and take it to some shows and win some trophies.
What is the longest period of time it's taken to restore a car?
Probably 15 years. there was a car that was getting built before I started, and we finished it probably 12 months after I started. That was a car that is quite complex, a Bentley S2 from 1960, and they're a very complex car with a lot of fiddly components, and it's got to be spot on. So it just took a long time with the extensive rust that the car had and the interior that needed to be done. And there's a lot of specialists that need to be involved to build those types of cars. So it just took a lot longer than probably what people would have liked, but the end result was really good. It won a few times at Motor Classica and at the Rolls-Royce Concours, so the end result was very satisfying.
Are most of the cars displayed at shows?
The shows are really based on different marques sometimes, like you might have a Mercedes-Benz Concours or a Bentley Rolls-Royce Concours, and then we decide if we've got a car that we think will compete well against the public. There's a lot of enthusiasts in the Mercedes-Benz Club and Rolls-Royce that do exceptionally good jobs themselves restoring cars, so there's always the expectation that the cars that we bring are going to be the best cars that are there. So we have to make sure, you know, we present the car as good as we can to hopefully at least be competitive amongst everything else that's there. Or you try and bring something that's unique. If you're just doing a display car, bring something else that nobody has, and that keeps the public interested as well. So we don't always compete at every show we go to. Sometimes it's just for display. Yeah, which is Lindsay's friends, or we went to Portsea, had a gull-wing Mercedes down there, which people love to see. And it's not always about trying to win, it's about just getting the cars out there and seen.
Do you have a criteria to determine what cars are special enough to be in the collection?
If we're going to buy a car, we try and buy it. It doesn't matter if it's really worn out or not in the best condition, because obviously you get a better deal when the car's a bit rough or needing a lot of work. We probably prefer to buy cars that are needing restoration. Then we can pull them apart and start from ground up and build it to the car that you want it to be. And then you always keep the standard the same. A lot of times you'll buy a car that might be original, but it needs maybe just a paint job to keep it original. But if it's rougher than just a clean up, we usually pull it down to nothing and redo the whole car.